Most people think becoming wealthy is about earning a six-figure salary. It isn't. In fact, there are people earning less than $60,000 a year who quietly become millionaires, while others making well over $100,000 never build lasting wealth at all. Take Sarah. She's 34 years old. She teaches middle school in Columbus, Ohio, and earns $58,000 a year. Nothing about her income looks extraordinary. She doesn't drive a luxury car. She doesn't post lavish vacations online. If you met her, you'd probably assume she's doing fine. Now meet Jason. He's 36, lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and works as an independent contractor earning $112,000 a year. His income is almost double Sarah's. He upgrades his truck every few years, rents a larger house, and has no problem picking up the dinner bill when friends go out. If you only looked at their paychecks, you'd bet Jason becomes wealthy first. You'd lose that bet, because by their mid-40s, Sarah is on pace to reach financial independence years before Jason, despite earning dramatically less over her career. Why? Because wealth isn't built by income. It's built by crossing the right financial milestones. Hey, I'm Brian, and I spend way too much time thinking about why some people quietly build wealth, while others spend decades earning more without ever getting ahead. Today, we're breaking down the 3 money milestones that decide whether you'll actually become wealthy. Miss even one of them, and you can work hard for 40 years without ever feeling financially free. Cross all 3, and you'll dramatically shorten the path to real wealth, while avoiding mistakes that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. If you're serious about becoming better with money, consider subscribing. Every week we break down the numbers, psychology, and strategies that make wealth feel far less mysterious and far more achievable. Let's start with the first milestone almost everyone underestimates. Before we move to the next milestone, notice something important. Neither Sarah nor Jason became wealthy because of motivation. They became wealthy, or failed to, because of systems. And that's exactly why the first milestone matters so much. Milestone 1. Reach $10,000 invested. $10,000 doesn't sound life-changing. It certainly isn't enough to retire on. But psychologically, it's one of the most important numbers you'll ever reach. Here's why. Below $10,000, investing feels painfully slow. You contribute every month, check your balance, and it barely moves. Market gains are so small they feel almost invisible. Your portfolio doesn't seem like it's working for you at all. This is what I call the motivation desert. It's the long stretch where your habits are improving, but your results don't look impressive enough for your brain to stay excited. Human beings naturally respond to visible progress. If you spend 6 months saving and only see a few $100s of market growth, your brain concludes that investing isn't making much difference. The math tells a completely different story. Imagine your investments earn an average annual return of 10%. A portfolio worth $1,000 generates roughly $100 in growth over a year. Hardly noticeable. A portfolio worth $5,000 produces about $500. Better, but still easy to ignore. Now something changes. Once you reach $10,000 invested, that same 10% return becomes $1,000 in annual growth. For the first time, your money generates an amount large enough for your brain to recognize as real income. That's the psychological shift. You stop seeing investing as something you're doing. You start seeing your money working alongside you. Ironically, the people who reach this milestone fastest aren't the most disciplined every single day. They're the people who remove discipline from the equation altogether. Instead of deciding every month whether they feel like investing, they automate a fixed percentage of every paycheck before the money ever reaches their checking account. They understand something counterintuitive. The best financial decisions are often the ones you never have to make twice. Now let's run the numbers. Suppose you invest $500 every month. If you constantly pause contributions whenever money feels tight, reaching $10,000 can easily take well over 2 years. But if that $500 leaves your paycheck automatically every month, you arrive at the same destination without relying on motivation, willpower, or perfect habits. The milestone isn't just about accumulating $10,000. It's about proving you've built a system strong enough to survive your own emotions. And once that system exists, the second milestone starts becoming possible. Because eventually, something remarkable happens. Your investments begin contributing almost as much as you do. That brings us to the number Charlie Munger once described as the hardest milestone in investing. It's not $1 million. It's much smaller than that. If you're new here and just subscribed, comment your name below. I read every comment and shout out new subscribers in my next video. I do appreciate you joining me on this finance journey. Milestone 2. Reach $100,000 in net worth. If the first milestone teaches you how to save, the second teaches you what compounding actually feels like. Getting from $0 to $100,000 is brutally slow. Let's use realistic numbers. Assume you begin with nothing. You invest $500 every month. Your investments earn an average annual return of 7%. At that pace, reaching $100,000 takes roughly 11 years. 11 years. That's why so many people quit. They assume investing simply doesn't work. But here's the fascinating part. Once your net worth reaches $100,000, the climb becomes dramatically faster. Keeping the exact same monthly contribution and the exact same 7% return, moving from $100,000 to $200,000 takes only about 5.5 years. Half the time. Not because you suddenly become a better investor, because your portfolio finally starts carrying part of the load. This is where your wealth shifts from being powered mostly by your paychecks to being powered increasingly by your assets. Unfortunately, this is also where many people make their most expensive mistake. I call it the lifestyle inflation trigger. Your salary has increased. Your investments are growing. Your confidence is higher. So naturally, you convince yourself you've earned a nicer apartment, a luxury vehicle, more expensive vacations, and subscriptions you barely use. None of these decisions feel dangerous on their own. Together, they quietly redirect thousands of dollars every year away from your future. Let's run the numbers. Imagine your income increases enough that you begin spending an extra $1,000 every month instead of investing it. That's $12,000 every year no longer working for you. If those investments could have earned an average 7% annual return over the next 20 years, that seemingly harmless lifestyle upgrade can leave you approaching age 55 with roughly $350,000 less than you otherwise could have accumulated. Think about that. Not because you earned less, not because markets crashed, simply because your lifestyle expanded as fast as your income. The people who become wealthy behave almost backwards. Every raise creates a decision point. Most people ask, what can I afford now? Wealth builders ask, how much of this raise can future me keep forever? That's a completely different mindset. Crossing $100,000 isn't the finish line. It's where compounding finally begins acting like the force you've always heard people describe. But there's still one milestone that matters even more. Because wealth isn't measured by how much you own. It's measured by what your assets allow you to stop doing. If you've made it this far, you're already thinking differently than most people. And if you're getting value from these breakdowns, take a second to like the video and subscribe. It helps the channel reach more people who want practical, numbers-driven financial advice instead of empty motivational slogans. Now let's look at the final milestone, the one that actually determines whether you've achieved financial freedom or simply accumulated a large investment account. Milestone 3. Your passive income covers your baseline expenses. This is where most people misunderstand what financial freedom actually means. Ask someone how much money they need to retire, and you'll hear answers like $1 million, $2 million, or even $5 million. But those numbers are meaningless without context. Financial freedom isn't a net worth number. It's a ratio. Specifically, it's the relationship between what your investments can safely produce and what your life actually costs. Let's say your baseline monthly expenses are $3,000. Notice I didn't say your total spending. Baseline expenses are the amount required to keep your life running before any luxuries enter the picture. Housing, utilities, food, insurance, transportation, healthcare, the essentials. $3,000 per month means you need $36,000 each year. Now apply the widely used 4% rule. If you withdraw approximately 4% of your portfolio each year, your investments have historically had a strong chance of lasting for decades under many market conditions. To safely generate $36,000 annually, you divide that number by 4%. The result is roughly $900,000 invested. That's your financial freedom number. Not because someone on the internet declared it, because your own expenses did. Now here's the insight that changes everything. Most people believe the fastest path to financial freedom is earning more. Sometimes it is, but often, it's far more effective to need less. Imagine two people. The first spends $5,000 every month just to maintain their lifestyle. The second spends $3,000. Using the same 4% rule, The first person needs approximately $1,500,000 invested before their portfolio can comfortably support their lifestyle. The second person needs roughly $900,000. That's a difference of $600,000. Not because one person invested better, not because they found a secret stock, simply because they permanently lowered the amount their future portfolio must produce. This is what I call the baseline expense trap. Lifestyle upgrades feel temporary. They rarely are. Every recurring expense you add today becomes another dollar your investments must generate every single year for the rest of your life. The people who quietly become wealthy understand something that sounds almost backwards. Every permanent dollar they eliminate from their baseline expenses creates permanent financial leverage. They're not obsessed with looking rich. They're obsessed with reducing the amount of wealth required to become free. Run the numbers for yourself. If you reduce your baseline expenses by just $500 every month, that's $6,000 less required each year. Using the 4% rule, you've just reduced your financial freedom target by approximately $150,000. Think about that for a moment. One decision about housing, transportation, or recurring subscriptions can eliminate the need to build an extra $150,000 portfolio. That's why this final milestone matters more than any specific income level. Because once your investments reliably cover your baseline expenses, you've fundamentally changed your relationship with work. You no longer work because you have to. You work because you choose to. Before we finish, I want to leave you with something practical. Knowing these milestones means very little if you never calculate where you actually stand. So here's exactly what you can do this week. Action step 1. Calculate your distance to the first milestone. Open every investment account you own. Add together the balances from your retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, and long-term index fund investments. Write down one number. Now subtract that number from $10,000. Don't judge the result, just identify the gap. If you're $2,000 away, divide that by your monthly investment amount. Investing $500 each month means you're roughly 4 months from crossing one of the most important psychological thresholds in wealth building. Now the goal isn't abstract anymore, it's measurable. Action step 2. Calculate your real net worth. Take out a piece of paper. On one side, list everything you own that's building long-term wealth. Cash savings, investments, retirement accounts, home equity if you own property. Now list every debt, credit cards, student loans, car loans, mortgages. Subtract what you owe from what you own. That's your net worth. Now compare it with $100,000. You're not measuring success, you're measuring distance. Because once you know exactly where you are, building a plan becomes dramatically easier than chasing an emotional idea of getting rich. You've now measured the first 2 milestones. The final calculation is the one that tells you whether you're moving toward financial freedom or simply accumulating a larger lifestyle. Action step 3. Calculate your baseline expenses. Go through the last 3 months of bank and credit card statements. Ignore vacations. Ignore gifts. Ignore impulse purchases. Focus only on the expenses your life genuinely requires. Housing, utilities, insurance, groceries, transportation, healthcare. Average those monthly totals together. That's your baseline expense number. Most people have never calculated it, yet it quietly determines how much wealth they'll need for the rest of their lives. Action step 4. Calculate your financial freedom number. Multiply your monthly baseline expenses by 12. That gives you your annual required spending. Now divide that number by 4%. Or, even simpler, multiply your annual expenses by 25. If your baseline expenses are $3,000 every month, your annual expenses are $36,000. Multiply $36,000 by 25, and your target becomes approximately $900,000 invested. Write that number down, not to intimidate yourself, to replace uncertainty with clarity. Because every investment you make from this point forward has a destination instead of simply a balance. And that brings us back to Sarah and Jason, because now you know something you didn't know at the beginning of this video. Remember Sarah, the teacher earning $58,000 a year? She wasn't wealthier because she earned more. She wasn't luckier. She simply crossed each milestone in the right order. She automated her investments until she passed $10,000. She protected her progress instead of inflating her lifestyle, as her net worth crossed $100,000. Then she calculated her baseline expenses and built her investments around the life she actually wanted, not the one social media told her to buy. Now think about Jason. His $112,000 income gave him enormous potential. But potential isn't wealth. He never built automatic investing habits. He allowed every raise to become a permanent lifestyle upgrade. Most importantly, he never asked the question that matters most. How much does my life actually cost? Without that answer, every additional dollar he earned simply raised the amount he'd eventually need to retire. That's why one person moved steadily toward financial freedom, while the other stayed trapped on a treadmill of higher income and higher expenses. The lesson isn't that income doesn't matter. Of course it does. Higher income gives you a bigger engine. But engines don't determine where you end up. The milestones do. Because wealth isn't built one paycheck at a time. It's built one milestone at a time. Cross the right milestones, and your money eventually starts working harder than you ever have to. Thanks for listening.